All right, in this explainer, we're going to unpack two really powerful ideas from Wallace D. Wattles' classic, The Science of Getting Rich. We're going to look at how gratitude, when you pair it with a very specific way of thinking, can build a kind of momentum that, well, that actually lasts.
So, let's start with a problem I think we've all been through, right? You get this amazing idea, you start a new goal, and that first burst of energy, it just feels incredible. But then, a few days, maybe a few weeks later, poof, the fire's gone. What happens to all that momentum?
Our first reaction is usually to blame ourselves. We think, my willpower just isn't strong enough. But what if it's not about being lazy or undisciplined? The real culprit, a lot of the time, is just divided attention. Our focus gets pulled in a million different directions. And the good news is that's something we can actually learn to manage.
Okay, so how do we wrangle that scattered focus? Well, the first tool Wallace Wattles offers up is gratitude. But, and this is key, he talks about it in a really practical way. It's not just some nice, warm feeling. He sees it as a powerful mental tool.
So instead of a passive feeling, think of gratitude as an active skill you can develop. Its whole job is to stabilize your attention, kind of like an anchor for your mind. It keeps you on what Wattles calls the creative plane, which is basically a mindset that's always looking for solutions and opportunities. It literally stops you from drifting off into worry, doubt, and all those other distractions.
And this really breaks down the two mindsets Wattles is talking about. On one side, you've got the competitive mind. It sees the world as a place of scarcity, a zero-sum game where for you to win, somebody else has to lose. But then you have the creative mind, which operates from a place of abundance. It's all about growth and finding new opportunities. Gratitude, that's the practice that keeps you firmly planted in that creative state. To really get why gratitude is so powerful, it's helpful to look at the flip side. What happens when our mind isn't anchored in thankfulness, but in, well, dissatisfaction? And Wattles is pretty blunt about this. He basically says that the moment you let your mind just sit there and stew in dissatisfaction, complaining about things, focusing on what's wrong, it's like stepping into mental quicksand. You immediately start sinking. You start losing ground and get pulled right back into that reactive scarcity mindset.
The really critical thing to understand here is that this creates a nasty feedback loop. When you're constantly fixated on what's missing or what's broken, your mind literally starts to take the shape of those problems. You start seeing more problems, you seem to attract more of what you don't want, and you basically cut yourself off from the part of your mind that comes up with creative solutions. Okay, so once gratitude has done its job and anchored your attention, you're ready for the second big principle, thinking in a certain way.
And look, this is not about wishful thinking. It's really a discipline. It's about maintaining, you could call it cognitive coherence. You do this by creating a super clear, detailed mental blueprint of what you want. That vision then acts like a compass for your mind, always pointing it in the right direction. This process here is a perfect roadmap. Step 1, you form that crystal clear mental picture of your goal. Step 2, you hold on to that vision with a steady, unwavering purpose. And step 3, you keep that feeling of deep gratitude, that faith that it's already on its way. Having that kind of clarity it cuts down so much on the mental energy you waste on day-to-day decisions.
Okay, this all sounds great in theory, right? But how does it actually play out in the real world? Let's look at a couple of everyday examples. So, at work, this means you hold the vision of the job you ultimately want, but you pour all your energy and excellence into the job you have right now. In relationships, it means you focus on how you can genuinely contribute to the people around you. And when it comes to habits, you can even use modern tricks like if-then plans to kind of automate your progress and close that gap between what you intend to do and what you actually do. And to make this even more practical, here's a super simple exercise. You can use it anytime, anywhere to reset your focus in like under a minute. It's just a simple 2-step reset. First, just pause, look around, and find one thing in your present situation that you are genuinely grateful for, and really take a second to feel it. Then, step 2, once your mind is settled in that feeling, briefly bring your clear mental vision back to the front of your mind. That's it. This tiny action anchors your attention and then points it right back toward your purpose.
So, we've covered a lot of ground. What's the big takeaway here? How do these two ideas, gratitude and clear thinking, really work together?
It really comes down to this. They're a system. They aren't two separate things. They work together. Gratitude is the tool that stabilizes your attention. And it's only when your attention is stable that you have the mental bandwidth to hold a clear, unwavering vision of what you want.
And that brings us to a really crucial point.
Having a clear mind, having that powerful vision, that's the essential first step. But as Wattles puts it, thought brings the thing to you, but it's through action that you actually receive it. The mindset is really only half of the equation.
And that sets us up perfectly for our next explainer. We're going to dig into exactly how to connect this powerful mindset to effective real-world action. Thanks so much for watching.